Going to be talking about team building and communication. So I'm just going to start off by asking you guys to just consider what is leadership. You don't actually have to answer this question directly, just like think about it for like a couple seconds. Um, so the problem with this question is that the answers it solicits are just nouns when leadership itself is just actually a verb. So instead, Um, I would like you guys to either unmute or answer in the chat, whatever you're more comfortable with. Answer what does leadership look like or what does it sound like? And you can just take a minute or two to think about that. Okay, yeah, collaboration is definitely like a big thing with leadership and making sure you're listening to people, being proactive, getting ahead of problems, um, yeah, speaking up and guiding, making sure people are heard, and making sure that you're all going in the right direction. So, um, one of the biggest things to remember when thinking about leadership, especially with children, is patience. So I'll just like talk about an example really quick. Think of someone that you know who is really patient or that you consider patient. How do you know? And like what kind of things do they do or say that make them seem patient? And again, you can like unmute or just put your answer in the chat. Yeah, definitely listening to what others have to say is definitely a cornerstone of patience or trying to figure out the solution to things. Um, so things that you can do or say to be patient or come off as patient is speaking calmly, even when you might be in a situation where someone might be expected to seem upset. Taking a breath before you speak, asking for help when you need it, waiting for people to finish speaking, letting others go first, doing more than required, not complaining when you have to do something that you don't really want to do, and even just something as simple as smiling can make you seem more patient. Um, so at camp, everyone is going to have the opportunity to lead a group of campers or facilitate an activity. So the things that were just said about patience aren't just good for one-on-one interactions, but also when dealing with a group, because kids might not always listen to you, especially in a group setting. So it's a good thing to remember to keep like an even head in that kind of situation. So activities where you might be leading a group are when cabin counselors are getting campers ready for the day, leading specific activities throughout programming, or helping guide your unit between activities. Um, so another question. As an example, you can choose any age range that you want, but consider how you guys would plan an activity. What kind of things would you keep in mind, and what aspects of leadership that we've talked about would you use? And again, unmute or put it in the chat. Okay, well, things that you might consider when trying to schedule or coordinate an activity. Um, Things to consider when not regarding age group is just listening to what the kids want to do is pretty important because their enthusiasm and willingness to participate definitely hinges on that. Um, if it's something that they don't want to do, maybe trying to incorporate specific aspects of the game that they might want to do, even though you're doing something else. And just staying calm, even if they're kind of like wondering, why aren't we doing this? Continuously asking for something else. Um, so, in addition to patience and specific aspects of group leadership, there's four foundational skills that we are going to be focusing on. So, accessibility, approachability, teamwork, and clear communication. Um, to come off as accessible, people know where to find you at different times throughout the day. You make time to talk, or you set up a time to talk later if you're busy. You follow up with them later or follow up with what you said you would do. But accessibility is more than just how you come off to people, it's also like how you look and how you sound. So, open body language, sustained eye contact, and having like calm and warm responses. Um, this kind of ties in with approachability. So you can show eye contact and other body language that you are paying attention and you're remaining calm. And with approachability, you can ask open-ended questions in order to learn more about that person's experience, which gives them more comfort in the situation. For good teamwork or to be a good team member, you sometimes do things that you don't agree with. You give your input on situations, and at camp, you are a role model, so you do what you tell others to do. It's kind of like a golden rule situation. Treat others how you want to be treated is just like one example. Um, Clear communication is also really important at camp. You should express yourself clearly, especially your expectations for your staff. So using less words, cutting down fluff, being more direct, or writing things down, because some people are better able to remember that way. Listening carefully, especially to the concerns of your staff. So showing good eye contact, nodding, leaning in, and paraphrasing what is being said to just clarify that you are listening. Another form of communication that some people might be much more comfortable with interpreting is nonverbal communication. So, to be specific, communication is conveying information through the exchange of thoughts, messages, information by speech, visual signals, writing, or even just behavior. It requires a sender, a messenger, and a recipient. Although the receiver doesn't have to be present or aware of the sender's intent to communicate at the time. So communication can occur across distance in time and space, but the receiver has to understand the message of the sender. So nonverbal communication can be as simple as nodding yes to a question without saying yes, or having a deeper understanding of someone's physical cues on whether they understand what you're saying or if they don't. So, what are one or two common nonverbal cues that you regularly see? What kind of message do they send? And then you guys can just type it in the chat. Facial expressions is a really big one, especially with how many muscles that we have in our face. So we can express it with like smiling, frowning, scrunching up your eyebrows, or even like more subtle things like squinting your eyes. Um, it can also be like, yeah, hand fidgeting or like movements, typically. Or sometimes it has to do with anxiety or not understanding, shrugging. Yeah, that's a big one. Just like this, like day-to-day communication. Um, yeah, so those are all really good. So typically good like nonverbal nonverbal communication has to do with proximity, um, like movement, posture, gesture, eye contact, physical contact, or just like presence, how you assert yourself in the environment. And those all are like really big ways of communicating how you feel about a situation, how you feel about what someone's telling you, or like how you would prefer to present yourself to the kids at camp. Because maybe you're not realizing it, but your nonverbal communication might be making you seem a bit more hostile or just like less approachable. So making sure that you're kind of controlling it in a way that makes you very approachable, makes you someone that the kids can feel like they trust is important. So another aspect of good communication is self-expression. This is just about making sure that what you say is understood correctly by the people listening. So common examples are writing things down, because it helps to organize your thoughts, practice talking about things, because sometimes it can be hard to really form the sentences on the spot, using less words, especially when you're talking with kids, because sometimes we over communicate simple ideas, and kids or just adults might get confused. And then again, using like nonverbal cues to direct your message. So when communicating with kids at camp, it helps to incorporate positive expectations and rule setting. So starting with a positive comment about an activity or situation, it creates a safer space for kids to share how they feel and showing them that you're genuinely interested and excited about what they have to say or like the activity that you're about to go into, asking questions. So when you want to like assert what you're doing and the kids don't want to do it, or when you're trying to clarify something that might have confused the kids, you want to say like, do you guys get what I mean? Or like try to reword it in a different way. So rephrasing, supporting, and clarifying their answers when they do answer. And then if they're causing possible problems at camp and you're trying to assert like specific rules and you ask them about a rule, they answer with the rule, you can ask them gently, like, why is this a rule? Or how come is this a rule? So that they have to think about the consequences of their actions and take responsibility. They also have the power to make their own choices after that. And then they've already acknowledged maybe like why we have that rule, even if they break it again. Um, so general tips and tricks for communication. Open-ended questions are done oftentimes to keep the kids engaged, um, or moving on to like different activities, just like involving them in the process of transitioning. So asking them questions to help them reason their way to a solution that you might have already identified. Um, you might need to switch up how you ask questions. So when mediating a peer-to-peer conflict, coming up with your cabin agreements or handling homesickness or just transitioning between activities, it's good to have the kids talk about how they're feeling or express in what way that they might be confused about something. Close-ended questions are just simple yes or no questions. So it's more of just a simple answer. If the kids don't feel like explaining or don't know how to express how they're feeling, you can break it down into smaller questions that let them just answer in a yes or no fashion. So reframing your questions could allow the camper to be a more active participant in the conversation and hopefully come to a result, whatever you're going on. Um, being self-aware of how you communicate and where your strengths and weaknesses lie will help you adapt to all the kinds of situations where you're going to be responsible for being a good communicator. You're going to face situations at camp where you don't know exactly what to say or like how to articulate something correctly, but that's okay. As long as you're doing it in a safe and acceptable way with the campers, then it's fine. Um, just like go with your gut. So here's some questions that you can just think about after this meeting, just so you know like what you might want to work on before camp or what you're already good on for camp. Um, and then as a reminder, at camp we have the opportunity to create a fun and carefree experience for the campers. So being good with the kids is only a part of it. We have to be able to work together and communicate clearly so we can do our part behind the scenes. And hopefully this presentation kind of gave you a little bit of an insight into how you can communicate with both your peers and the campers when we're at camp later this summer. And then we have some frequently asked question slides that you guys can come back to and look at after this meeting, if you would like to. But that's all that I have for today. Unless anybody has like questions about today's presentation, I will be emailing